Just an incredible piece of work, a classic track released in 1971 on Badfinger's Straight Up album, Day After Day. You know, the story of Badfinger is one of tremendous highs, like being signed to the Beatles record label Apple and working closely with the Fab Four, and of course hit records like Come and Get It, Baby Blue, the aforementioned Day After Day. But it's also a story with devastating lows, particularly the suicides of founding members Pete Ham and Tom Evans, and the death at age 56 of drummer Mike Gibbons. Guitarist Joey Molland is the last surviving member of Badfinger, and it's a great honor to welcome Joey to the program, not only to talk about his latest solo album, which is a great record called Return to Memphis, but also to share some stories from Badfinger's iconic power pop career. Joey, welcome to the show, and considering that we just started off with Day After Day, is there anything you can tell us about recording that song?
Yeah, a couple of things about it. We'd done the backtrack, and I think there was maybe a rough vocal on it, and we'd started to work on doing the guitar solo, which was going to be a slide solo. And Pete and I were working on the solo in the studio there, and George Harrison comes in the room and asks if we'd mind if he played some guitar as well on it. And he wanted to play slide. He loved to play slide, you know.
Sure.
So, of course, I took my guitar off right away and gave it to him. Go ahead, man. Go ahead, do it, yeah. And he and Pete ended up doing the slide part. Turned out great, of course.
Yeah.
Beautiful part. You know, George wanted to do the two guitar parts at the same time. You know, it splits into a harmony there during the solo. And, you know, slide is a kind of precarious instrument to play, slide guitar. You know, the notes are a little bit iffy now and again.
Sure.
And but George insisted on doing it live and doing it together. And it took him and Pete quite a long time to get those tracks down. But, of course, they didn't. It sounds lovely to this day.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing was we were down in the big studio doing some work on vocals and stuff, and in walks Leon Russell. To say he's an old friend of George, and he comes in to say hello. And George ropes him in right away and says, hey, I wonder if you'd play a little piano for us, Leon. And he played Leon the backtrack for the Day After Day song. And Leon said, oh, okay. And he went down in the studio. He listened to the song in the playback room. Then he went down in the studio. He listened to the song one more time and played along with it a little bit. And then he said, okay. And they played the song for him, and he recorded the piano track.
You got it that quickly, huh?
Yeah, three listens, and he'd never heard the song before.
It's one of my favorite parts of that song, his piano part.
Absolutely, yeah. That's how great Leon is.
And you mentioned George Harrison playing on that song, and of course Badfinger is known for their Beatlesque melodies. And I would think that when you were, starting your music career, the Beatles must have been a huge influence. Well, they influenced everybody at that time.
Yeah, they did. I was actually maybe a generation behind them, and we had all the same influences as those guys, Chuck Berry and everything. And, of course, we had the Beatles loaded on top of that.
So when the world divided up into Beatles or Rolling Stones fans, you were on the Beatles side of things.
But, yeah, I was in terms of the idea of the band and all that, although I do have to confess that I'm a big Stones fan and a big rhythm and blues and rock and roll fan. And in Liverpool, which is where I grew up, my main music was more like the Rolling Stones. The stuff that I played in Liverpool in bands was like rhythm and blues stuff, Sam and Dave and all that, you know.
And you can hear those influences on your new record, Return to Memphis, which we'll talk about in just a second. But I want to go back to the early days of Badfinger, when the band wasn't even called Badfinger. They were initially the Ivies. That's
right, yeah. They formed in Swansea perhaps 5 or 6 years before I joined, and they played around England, did their groundwork and all that stuff, and of course signed with Apple Records, and even have made Come and Get It shortly before the bass player left and I joined the band, you know.
And that's amazing to think about. There you were, thrown into the eye of the hurricane with the Beatles and Apple Records, and everybody, of course, in the band wrote songs, but luckily Pete Ham and Tom Evans were so good at coming up with really, really catchy singles.
Yeah, we did good. And you're right, Peter in particular was just at the top of his game, or just coming into the top of his game at that time. Tommy, of course, collaborated with him. They wrote that song Without You together. Although it was really two separate ideas, and the band put it together in the studio.
And while that wasn't a big hit for the band, it was several years later when Harry Nilsson recorded that song and took it all the way to #1, and it was a massive hit.
Oh, sure.
Massive.
Tommy and Pete won an Ivor Novello Award, which is like a Grammy.
Yes.
In England. It's a songwriting award, Tommy and Pete won that in England, yeah.
Yeah.
A few years ago, Mariah Carey went out and did a version which was an enormous hit all over the world again. So, yeah, you never know what's going to happen, do you?
Our guest today on the Vintage Rockin' Pop Shop is Joey Molland of Badfinger. We just heard the song Without You. And Joey, we were talking about the band helping to put two songs, one by Pete Ham and one by Tom Heavens, together to create that track. And when they wrote songs, either together or individually, did they come to the studio and say, this is how we want this to go? Or were they open to contributions from the entire band?
They were pretty open about everything. And it was more, we'd play the song and come up with parts of our own. I'm talking about instrumentally.
Right.
We'd come up with parts of our own, like, for instance, in No Matter What, all the arpeggio work and on the guitar solo and stuff, I did all of that. Pete had the basic framework of the song and all the lyrics and everything, and the melody, of course. I just put my 2 cents in it on the guitar, or a harmony here and there, you know what I mean?
Right.
And all of those things contributed to that music, yeah.
Joey, Badfinger's tenure on Apple Records seems to get most of the attention, but some good music was made when you moved to Warner Brothers. Now, I know that wasn't a great situation for the band in the end financially, but some really good songs during that period. One of yours that appeared on 1974's Badfinger, and it's one of my favorite tracks, is Give It Up. Can you tell us anything about that song?
Well, we were just in that space at the time, It was... The song is obviously about materialism and, the things we do for money and stuff. There are other things that might be considered just as important as money,
Yeah.
So that's what the song was about. I remember our manager, Bill, actually wanted us to build a show around it. And you know what you like about your own stuff. You don't want to go blowing your own trumpet and everything.
Right, sure.
So I was never really very strong about doing those kind of things. But I was happy that people liked the song and got the drift of it.
That was Badfinger with No One Knows from 1974's Wish You Were Here album. Our guest is Joey Molland of Badfinger. And Joey, before the break, we were talking about, some of the great songs that were released on Warner Brothers records, sort of the second half of Badfinger's career, and just so many of them. I could go right down the list.
There were always a few gems coming out.
Yeah.
Whether it would be a Pete song or a Tommy or Mike Gibbons. Mike Gibbons wrote some fine songs for the band.
Yeah.
I was getting ideas all the time. If the band liked it, then we'll do it,
Yeah, he wrote You're So Fine, which is another favorite of mine.
That's right, yeah.
Yes.
That's one of my faves off the record, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. Joey, it's good to hear so many positive things and positive stories about Badfinger. Obviously, Badfinger was a band that was touched by a lot of tragedy, but as I'm sitting here and listening to you reminisce, I'm hearing nothing but good feelings.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people think that we went through hell, really, but we really did have a great time. And those 4 years, like 1969 through like 1974, were really, really fun times for the band. We did get ripped off. It was very depressing. A couple of things happened inside the band. Relationships got a bit strange, but we really did have just a great time, excellent time. Everywhere we went, people were great to us. we sold really 99.9% of our gigs out.
Sure.
So it was always a great audience for us. We got to play and meet a lot of great artists, and a bit of a dream come true for four lads from England, just regular blokes, working blokes. It was a great time, honest to God, working with the Beatles. Are you kidding me? I mean, it was fantastic. We did all of George Harrison's All Things Must Pass album.
Yeah.
We played on the entire record. Tom and myself played on the Imagine album. We played on Jealous Sky and I Don't Want to Be a Soldier. We just did the two songs that night. Phil Spector was there. All that stuff. It was great. Imagine playing with John Lennon, even for just a couple of songs. It was really a thrill. One of the great nights of my life, anyway. And of course, and then the Imagine album, then the concert for Bangladesh. We got to do all the other stuff, topping the bill at Carnegie Hall, and headlining our own tours for 3 or 4 years there. It was a wonderful experience. We went all over the place. That was lovely, lovely.
You mentioned the bad management and getting ripped off. I think about the music industry today and the fact that it doesn't really exist anymore. I don't know if that would even happen to a group nowadays.
It seems to be very rare nowadays that those kind of things happen. A couple of reasons. The computer and the internet has really brought a lot of that stuff to light. Plus, the kids now, the youngsters, are a little bit more sophisticated than we were.
Mm.
In terms, they seem to be reading their contracts and paying attention.
Right,
we weren't really paying attention. We were really enjoying ourselves and just doing what came naturally,
That, of course, brings us right up to today and your latest CD, which is called Return to Memphis. Why Memphis, and how did this whole project come about?
I'd gone to Memphis to do a recording session for a friend of mine, Carl Wise. And we recorded at Willie Mitchell's old studio, the High Records headquarters, a studio called Royal in Memphis proper. And the studio is fantastic. There's loads of vibes there. It's been there for a long time, and as you probably know, Willie Mitchell produced all of Al Green's records there. Ann Peebles recorded B.B. King. It's just a fantastic place. Sam and Dave actually built the vocal booth.
Oh, wow.
With hammer and nails and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that. They've still got the original Hammond organ there, and the Rhodes piano, and the little Fender amps, and all the old mics are still there. So it's you can really immerse yourself in it, And that's what I felt like, and I thought, I'm going to go to Memphis and make a record. So I sent Carl all of my songs that I had about 30 or 40 songs that I sent down there, and I let Carl pick the songs out. He was going to produce it, and what I did was I just kind of surrendered myself to the Memphis method,
right?
And that's what the record is.
That was solo music from Joey Molland, All I Need Is Love, from his latest CD, Return to Memphis. Joey, you mentioned all those soul and R&B influences, and you can hear it on this record.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all these years later.
That was another thing that I enjoyed about making the record. It was completely different to anything I'd ever recorded. I'd always done my music in the style of, I guess, the Badfinger Beatles style,
right,
if you like. And I'd always made me records like that, so it was a great pleasure for me to not make a record like that. To just make a simple record in that style. I just enjoyed it was great. It's great.
I want to give people the chance to find you online, and where would they go online to get the record or the latest news, really, on what you're up to?
Well, we have a site, badfingersite.com, which is our website. I'm just now, believe it or not, setting up a site, joeymolland.net.
Oh, okay.
Which will be my website page. We're on Facebook, of course. The record's available through, all your Amazon and iTunes and all that stuff. Mark Hudson and I are planning on doing a record.
Oh, that now you just perked my interest up there with Mark Hudson, because what a great producer he is with those Ringo albums he did.
Oh yeah, he's a great producer, a great songwriter, and an amazing singer and arranger. He's just great. I'm really excited about it.
Wow, yeah, well, so am I. Hey, thanks so much, Joe. You have a great rest of your day.
You're very welcome, and Merry Christmas to you.
Yep, Merry Christmas to you. Bye-bye.
All right, boss.